The Orange get their first ACC tournament victory against Wake Forest before being eliminated by a fresher, healthier UNC team. We'll hit that game up for you first. And as Syracuse sits on the bubble, how does their resume match up against other bubble teams out there? We'll give you the numbers, and we'll turn to Joe for the best and worst case scenarios heading into March Madness. Let's go.
Make some noise, Orange fans. It's time for the Cuse Nation podcast with Sean and Joe. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/Cuse Nation podcast.
All right, what's up, Cuse Nation? Thanks for tuning in to the Cuse Nation podcast with Sean and Joe. If you like the show, please share it with your friends and family. All right, first, let's just hit up the win. We couldn't get back in time, obviously. That was a little bit pointless to come back and hit up the Wake Forest win, but a game in which we needed to win an ACC tournament game, and we did it. We needed that second game against UNC. I feel like in the long run, even though that we lost that game, which we'll go over, that helped us out. Marek just absolutely lit it up that night, and it was just so good to see. We should have won that game. We did win that game. That's fantastic. But what about Mark, Joe? And even Chukwu. Chukwu with 14. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Between Marek and Chukwu, we had 34 points and 12 of 14 shooting. So when they play like that, we shouldn't lose. So especially against the team like Wake Forest, and like you said, we needed it. So we went and took care of business. There's a couple times where they got close and made it a little nerve-wracking, but I feel like we controlled the game pretty much.
Yeah, and one thing I'll note, Chukwu looked really good getting up and down the court on Tuesday. Not so much last night, but on Tuesday he looked pretty.
You need a little bit more than 1 day rest when you're playing 35 plus minutes.
Yeah, no kidding. He was just he just couldn't do it. Found out today that I guess Sidibe is having surgery at the end of the year. Did we already know that?
They did say something about that.
They said he might need it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely having surgery at the end of the season, and he played. Last night he did his best. He played.
He gutted out a pretty good performance, considering.
Yeah, I mean the he's got 10 rebounds, and
he hasn't been able to play or practice or anything. So I mean, any minutes that he goes in there, he's got no type of chemistry with the team out there. He's just going out there doing what he can,
He's just filling it in. He did a good job last night. All right, Syracuse dropped last night 20-13 overall after getting handled pretty good by UNC, 78-59 in front of 17,732 fans in the second round of the ACC tournament in Brooklyn. Brissett with a double-double. He led all scores with 20. He was 5 for 7 from 3. That was fantastic. 7 for 14 for overall, and he had 10 rebounds. Battle and Howard combined for a total 8 of 39 from the floor and 3 of 15 behind the arc. It was a struggle all night for them as they could not obviously penetrate the UNC defense. They were just all over it. Howard turned the ball over 7 times, 12 times as a team. UNC scored 13 points off of those turnovers. They were just playing at a different speed, UNC was last night. After scoring 20, we mentioned, against Wake Forest, Mark could only muster up 6 points. 4 of those came early in the first half. Williams led his team with 17 points. He was 7 for 11 overall, 2 for 5 from 3. But it was Pinson who really gave the Orange fits on both sides of the ball. He finished with 16 points and 11 boards. Syracuse was out-rebounded 42-37. As a team, they shot 31.7 to UNC's 43.8. And finally, Syracuse with 5 shot clock violations. Joe, Syracuse was limited early with foul trouble. Chukwu, I think he had 2 fouls in the first 6 or 8 minutes or something like that. We're playing 2 games in 2 days, the latter of which was a healthier, more well-rested UNC team. What'd you think? Did it meet your expectations?
Exactly kind of what I thought. I mean, we're not in a position to where we can even really rest our guys, even if it was Wake Forest and we were controlling the game. So we just knew. I mean, I talked about it before that I just didn't think that we had the type of roster to where we could make a deep run in the ACC tournament. You know, at least in the NCAA tournament, you get a day in between and you win 2 games and then you get a week. This is just back to back to back to back, and we don't have the roster for that. And again, I think you saw that with the stats that we talked about with their second chance points, their fast break points, their points off turnovers. They Roy Williams, he consistently just subbed guys in, fresh legs.
Yep. Kept them healthy.
Just kept pressure. You know, everything we had to work for, they made us work for it very hard. And just again, at the end of the game, we were just gassed. I mean, O'Shea Brissett had a pretty good game, but I mean, you could tell with Ty's battle, his legs weren't really into it at the end of the game. When he was trying to hit some of those shots, everything was short rimmed. You know, Chukwu definitely looked fatigued and fouled out with 16 minutes to go. So it didn't look too good. And even then, we mustered up a little bit of a run with got us within 9 at some point. But I mean, that took everything that we had out of us to even get to that point. And so again, I mean, they played as hard as they could physically play, but we're not built for that. And like Boeheim said in his press conference, that we've played, you know, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And when you have 5 guys playing 35 plus minutes throughout that, it's just not enough time near the end of the year. So I think they're just starting to get a little tired. So you saw that last night, obviously.
We play 7 guys, you know, I guess. You know, like for instance, against Wake Forest, you know, Moyer played 2 minutes, and
you could say we played.
Sidibe, huh?
Well, you could say that we only played 5. I mean, if it was up to Boeheim, Moyer and Sidibe wouldn't play.
Yeah, so, Sidibe played 5 minutes against Wake Forest, and Moyer played 2. Really, you're right. We could say we played 5 guys. But
if everyone's playing good and they're staying out of foul trouble, he doesn't sub.
Oh, right. But with the stamina in a tournament like this where you got to play every day, absolutely, we just don't have the roster. I honestly thought it was going to be a little closer. You got 17,000+ fans in there. A lot of them making noise for the Orange, the well-traveled team. Everybody knows that the Orange is popular in New York City, obviously. But I thought it was going to be a little more competitive. But like you said, you could just see it, man. You could see it, and they were tired, man. They were tired.
Yeah. No, I mean, you could look at it the first half. There's some spots when we looked a little tired, and I thought there was some kind of questionable calls considering how physical they were on the defensive end. I mean, they doubled our free throw percentage. I think we went 11 for 14. They shot 15. 28 free throws. So
22 for 28.
Right. So, but even the first half, I mean, it was eerily similar to the first half, the first time we played North Carolina when O'Shea Brissett hit a 3 right at halftime to bring it within 8, I think. And last night I think it was 9, and last night he hit it to come within 10. So we were pretty much in the same exact position that we were the first time we played him. You could just tell in the second half that
the speed
we just didn't have it. Yep.
The speed.
Fresh legs.
The speed not only of the players but of the passes. It was just,
and they're being physical, throwing bodies around. That will take its toll on you throughout a game as well, especially when you had a game the night before. So,
well, what we really want to do in this episode is the bubble talk, Joe. So, final thought on the game last night.
Or
the ACC tournament for us in general.
Well, I'm just glad that we finally got our first win. At least beating Wake Forest keeps us in the discussion. So that's all you can really ask for. I wish it would have been able to be a little bit more competitive. But again, it wasn't because of lack of effort or hustle that we lost that game yesterday.
Exactly. So. The Tar Heels improved to 7-1 against Syracuse since the Orange joined the ACC. Syracuse's ACC tournament record now stands at 1-4. Tyus Battle scored in double digits for the 32nd time in 33 games. All right, Joe. Let's first, real quick, compare where we are now with where we ended up last year. Last year we had an RPI, final RPI, and ours might change a little bit, but this is what we ended up with last year. An RPI of 85 and a strength of schedule of 57. As of right now, according to real-time RPI, we're at a 44 and a strength of schedule of 13. So, let's take a look at where we stand in the quadrants real quick, and let me know, or let us know, any close teams that have a chance of moving up or moving down, and let us know where we're at.
Okay. As far as this morning, after the games from last night, we currently stand still 5-0 in our quadrant 4 games, 9-2 in quadrant 3 games, 3-3 in quadrant 2 games, and 3-8 in quadrant 1 games. Some of the guys or some of the teams you want to look for that could change that a little bit. Buffalo right now, currently RPI 32. If they get to 30 or lower, then that will become quadrant 1 win instead of quadrant 2. And they're beginning the MAC tournament today. They're the number 1 seed in that tournament. So, and Toledo, right now, they're in that same tournament. They're the number 2 seed in that tournament, and their RPI right now is 87. So if they can get that to a 75, then that will turn a quadrant 3 win into a quadrant 2 win. And then the one that we have to look out for, which is tough because you don't know how much it's going to move, but right now Maryland is currently sitting at 74 RPI, and so they're a quadrant 2 win for us right now, but if their RPI slips because of some of the teams that they played losing throughout the tournament, because, their conference tournament's over, so they have no more games, I don't believe anyway. But if they slip past 75, then they'll drop from a quadrant 2 win to a quadrant 3 win. So that's the little bit of movement that we're looking at. So we definitely want to cheer for those MAC teams. Like I was telling you on the phone the other day, Buffalo was the number 1 seed in the MAC, Toledo number 2 seed, and Eastern Michigan number 3 seed, and they all have their first games in the quarterfinals of that tournament today. So
yeah, that's good for us then. So
yeah, it can help. It can definitely help.
Yeah. All right. So CBS's Jerry Palm has the orange on. He's got him in the first 4. Okay, he's the only real notable one to include Syracuse, by the way. But there's this guy. I got to mention this guy, John Matthews. He's an amateur. He goes by @SyracuseFan7 on Twitter. He's new to Twitter. When we gave him a follow on Twitter, I think he was at 7 followers. So he's the 3rd most accurate historically on the bracket matrix, and he put Syracuse on his list. In the first 4 too. So, real quick, I'll give him a follow at Syracuse Fan 7, and his website. I think he's been doing these every day now. His website is SyracuseFan7 bracketprojections.blogspot.com, and you can go there, and he's got it all broke down, and he's even got the last 4 buys and all that stuff. Let's. Oh, and by the way, Joe Lenardi has this out right now. Which Joe Lenardi, I was just talking about an amateur guy who's on Bracket Matrix. That John Matthews, he's ranked 3rd historically on that website. And I think Joe Lenardi, I don't want to project, but I think he's 180 or something like that, or 200 and something. So take that with a grain of salt. Joe Lenardi's got us out, and so does, by the way, Bracketville and the Athletic Stuart Mandel. So they got us out. But let's compare resumes. I got a list of 8 teams here, Joe. And you tell us what needs to happen. And we'll compare resumes and see. Because Syracuse's numbers this year are great. First, what was Syracuse's non-conference strength of schedule last year was I have it here, 215. Okay, is that what you got?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what they finished with, a 215. This
215, and they went 8-5.
And they went 8-5. Good point. This year it is, according to CBS, it's what?
18.
It's an 18. Okay.
And we went 11-2.
Okay. All right. So St. Mary's.
So it's needless to say, our non-conference is not going to ruin our tournament chances. So
exactly.
That's really right. So I mean, that's partly what we're looking at here. when I sent you those teams, and what I did was I sent you the teams that are either they're already like Lunardi has them in the tournament still, or teams that are close to where Syracuse is right now. And all of these teams on this list, including there's 4 other ACC teams, but they've all already either lost or like their conference tournament is over. So there's no more games to be played. So I kind of wanted to compare where, somewhere like Lunardi, he's got these teams in certain seeds in certain spots. But when you look at these numbers, it's just so close that it's just hard to really imagine how we could be so far off in some people's eyes. So
yeah, it's amazing to me, and I guess it's like the eye test. We had some poorly played games, but a lot of them were against really good teams. So take St. Mary's first. First, go ahead and break us down real quick.
No, okay. Well, based upon I got all this information from CBS Sports, and basically we're going to break it down as far as giving them the RPI, non-conference strength of schedule overall, and the quadrant 1 win-loss. And right now, obviously, Syracuse 20-13, RPI of 44. And like we said, strength of schedule is 13, non-conference strength of schedule is 18, and our quadrant 1 win-loss is 3-7. So obviously that could be a little bit better. But with all those other numbers, I mean, those are strong numbers. Strong numbers.
Yeah, bad losses, not even really any bad play, not even bad games, really.
And Lunardi right now, he has us in as not even the first 4 out, the next 4 out.
That's That's crazy.
So he's got us as like the 5th of the 6th team out right now. So, So I mean, like you were saying, if you want to go ahead with some of these teams on this list, we can kind of compare and kind of see what. I mean, like you were saying, St. Mary's, right?
Yeah, St. Mary's is first. Go ahead with that one.
St. Mary's 28-5. We know they play in the West Coast Conference, and this is kind of funny that St. Mary's, the only quadrant 1 games that they actually had was against Gonzaga this year, and they actually gained a quadrant 1 win by losing to BYU the other day because they beat BYU home and away. But because of their St. Mary's RPI, BYU, after they beat them in the tournament, their RPI went up so much that made St. Mary's win at BYU a quadrant 1 win. So
that's crazy.
They gained a quadrant 1 win by actually losing. But right now, Lunardi's got them in as a 10 seed. And let's just give a RPI 43, one ahead of us. So
yeah, that's good.
Not too bad, right?
Mm-hmm,
so
right.
Non-conference strength of schedule 189, strength of schedule 172,
That blows my mind. Go on.
And they're quad, and I checked it, and I know the one I sent you, I sent 1-1, but they're actually 2-1 in quadrant 1 win-loss, but still. So you've only played 3 quadrant 1 games. You're in a conference that's, other than St. Mary's, Gonzaga, and BYU, relatively weak. So to me right there, that just screams like what in the world? Like that doesn't even make any sense to me. But they've been ranked most of the year though too because of their win-loss, because they are 28-5. But at the end of the day, how many? Look at the strength of schedule, So I mean, that's just one instance. That's a team. He's got them ranked 10th right now, like safely in.
That's crazy. I would take one look at those numbers and say I don't even need to compare them to anything. If those were my numbers, if those are Syracuse's numbers, I would be very, very worried. So that makes absolutely no sense.
No, yeah. It would be impossible to be Syracuse's because Syracuse is always going to play more quadrant 1 games, and that's
right.
That's where a team like that, though, St. Mary's, it's happened before. I've seen them not make the tournament going 27-5, 26-4, stuff like that because they don't play enough quality teams. Well, the strength schedule. I mean, you can go and play.
You can do that in your non-conference.
Non-conference, exactly. Your non-conference is 189. If you want to get in with that resume, your non-conference has got to be.
You got to bump that up.
Yeah, top 40s, top 50s at least if you want to get in the conversation, in my opinion. But Joe Lunardi's got him as a 10 seed.
We know where he stands. The second team on here is Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma is a tough one, and that's because their RPI is very, very close. Let's start with their record, 18-13. Lunardi's got them in a playing game right now. I know they have a superstar, Trey Young, superstar freshman, but after starting, I think they were close to ranked in the top 10 at some point earlier this season, and they've just gone kind of off the rails. Again, their RPI is 47, strength schedule 22, so compared to ours, it's pretty similar. but their non-conference strength of schedule was 132 to our 18. And again, they're 18 and 13. We're 20 and 13. So again, that's very similar. The only reason that I can think Lenardi's got them ahead of us is because they have they're 6 and 8 in quadrant 1 games. So again, that's difficult because that's a lot of game. I mean, we had only 10 quadrant 1 games. They had 14 and they won 6 of them. So again, if that's what it's going to be, if the committee's going to look at the most quadrant 1 games and wins and stuff like that, then I'd say Oklahoma probably does have an edge on us if that's going to be the end all. But that non-conference strength of schedule looks pretty easy to me.
Yeah, I'd say that's almost a wash. They do have the edge though on the quadrants. I would say Oklahoma, just going off of this, and this is what we've been taught is going to happen. It's somewhat to a certain degree. They look good. They look worthy, right?
Yeah, they look worthy to me.
Yeah,
I think that honestly, if it was up to me, they would get in, but they wouldn't be the team that kept Syracuse out. That'd be for sure.
Right. Exactly. Okay. An ACC rival, Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. We can go. I mean, we can go down the line with this. I mean, the next 4 teams are all ACC teams. Virginia Tech right now, 21 and 11. Their RPI based on CBS Sports is 62nd. Strength of schedule 69, and non-conference strength of schedule is 327. Lenardi's got them ranked as a 9 seed, and the quadrant 1 win-loss is 5 and 7. So they have 2 more quadrant 1 wins than us. But again, looking at the strength of schedule numbers and the fact that we're 20 and 13, they're 21 and 11, and we beat them head-to-head at home, to think that we're just not even sniffing, that we're not even close to them is just, again, it's just crazy to me. Again, the only difference, I mean, we have a way better strength of schedule. The only difference is 2 quadrant 1 wins. So, and then obviously a little bit of the what your conference record was regular season, but I don't know how much they're actually putting into effect of that this year.
I don't know if that should even be. I mean, well, of course it should be looked at to a certain degree, but all of that, your numbers will reflect your conference record anyway, to a certain degree.
Right.
What was Virginia Tech's non-conference? Is it
327?
It's a 327 non-conference strength of schedule.
Right.
There's only 351 teams.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's weak.
And we beat them head to head. And right now, I mean, you're talking about Joe Lenardi having them in almost 20 lines ahead of us.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah.
I would say they definitely don't push us out. I don't know if they deserve to really be in, to be honest with you.
They had good wins, though. That's the thing. 5 and 7 in quadrant 1. And again, if that's what's going to happen, then we have to start looking at the losses and where quadrant, 4 losses and stuff like that.
Right.
It's just tough because, again, like I said, the only thing that they have on us is that and how they did in the regular season ACC. So, but if you look at those numbers, it's like,
they got a couple
we're not
wins.
20. We're not 20 teams away.
No.
When you cover those team names with your hand, that's
the blind test.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and just going into what next one, might as well go right into it.
Well, real quick, because we're going to predict these. I got St. Mary's out. I got Oklahoma in. Where do you got Vatech?
Vatech will be in.
Vatech will be in, you think? I was on the fence, so I'll agree. I'm really on the fence with that one, though. All right, next up's Louisville, Joe.
Louisville is 20 and 12 currently. Again, RPI 39, strength of schedule of 19, so it's very comparable to us. Non-conference strength of schedule is 84th, and their record quadrant 1 is 3 and 10. So they had 3 more chances to get a quadrant 1 win, and we still have the same amount of quadrant 1 wins. They're currently Lenardi has them in as an 11 seed in the playing game, and again, 1 loss difference. We got better numbers, the same amount of quadrant 1 wins and less tries, and we beat them at their place. So again, this is another situation just like Virginia Tech, where very, very close resumes, and we have the head-to-head. So
You know what? That makes my decision on Virginia Tech easier, though. If I was to go through all these and look at it again, I think Louisville's looks better than Virginia Tech, and I was on the fence with Virginia Tech. So,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's tough because what do you look at? Are we looking at quadrant 1 wins and losses? Are we looking at strength of schedule?
I think you got to take it all in.
Close.
Yeah, you got to take it all in. But what it boils down to, in my opinion, is the strength of schedule overall, the non-conference strength of schedule, and the RPI is really, I think, what it boils down to, because the quadrants and the conference record reflects all those numbers. Do you see?
Right.
Like, those numbers are a boiled down version of all the records and all that stuff.
Well, that's the way that I look at it. I look at it as, if Virginia Tech's non-conference strength schedule is 327, then why do they only have one more win than us? So,
right.
That's one of the ways that I look at it. But then you can also look at it as, they had 12 chances to get quadrant 1 wins, and they got 5 of them. Louisville had 13 chances and only had 3.
Yeah.
So
I would take. I'm going to change.
No, just might as well keep going because there's more.
Yeah. All right, let's go. What do you say about Louisville, Joe?
Louisville is.
They lost today, by the way. They got hammered.
Yeah, I know, and because based upon the fact that they're at 20-12 or 20-13, with the difference in non-conference strength of schedule and the fact that they couldn't get any more quadrant 1 wins over us, I'd say I like our chances over Louisville as well. So I don't think Louisville gets in.
All right. Let's go on to Florida State, Joe.
Florida State is, again, it's one of those teams, 51 RPI, 68 strength of schedule, 312 non-conference strength of schedule.
Just awful.
And they're 20-11. And right now, Lenardi's got them as a 10 seed. Quadrant 1 win-loss is 6-6, 500 against quadrant 1s. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, I would like to, with a 312 non-conference strength schedule, I'd like to see more than 20 wins. We got a better RPI. We got a better strength schedule, non-conference strength schedule. The only difference is, obviously, again, it's the big wins. So it's it's a recurring theme. And again, in this case, Florida State has the tiebreaker against us. They beat us at third place. So. But again, this is another one of those situations, every single one of them, where you put your hand over those team names and look at those numbers, and I just don't see how. Like right now, Lenardi's got NC State as a 9 seed. That's, again, somewhere around 15, 18 teams better than us.
Our numbers are...
Oh, sorry, a 10 seed. That's Florida State 10 seed still. I mean, they still have them, so I don't know.
Our RPI ranks 3 on here. Our non-conference strength of schedule amongst all these teams ranks first, and our strength of schedule overall ranks first. So,
but we tied for last, other than St. Mary's,
right? And that's where it hurts.
With the quadrant 1 wins losses. So when you look at it and you start, and this is why I wanted to set this chart up, is you can kind of see where people are leaning, and again. If you look at some of the ESPN stuff, these numbers are a little bit different. So maybe that's why Lenardi's seeds are a little bit skewed, because, I am going off of CBS Sports, and maybe that's why Jerry Palm still has Syracuse in the tournament right now as a play-in.
Yeah, maybe that's why. But
maybe that's why, because, like I said, looking at these numbers, I don't see how you can keep them out against some of these teams. What do we got? One more. We got one more ACC team, right?
Well, let's see. Florida State in or out, Joe?
I think Florida State's going to be in, just based upon the fact that they're 500 and the big wins that they have.
Yeah, I would put.
They've been ranked in and out ranked the whole year. So.
Yeah. All right. Next up is NC State. They are
NC State
21-11.
21-11. RPI is 63. Strength schedule is 65. Non-conference strength schedule is 263. So again, and their quadrant 1 wins and losses is 5-7.
Had some big wins,
which is pretty good too.
Duke,
and right, I mean, if you look at like NC State, Florida State, Virginia Tech, all those teams, they all have the same kind of type of resume. They only have one or maybe the same amount of wins. We have 2 more losses because we played more games. But at the the end of the day, when you look at these non-conference schedules, I mean,
I know.
Virginia Tech 327, Florida State 312, NC State 263. My question is that how do you not have more wins than what you have? I look at it like if you have that type of
Strength and non-conference.
then you should be able to have one or two or three more, especially when they had a couple more wins than us just normally in the ACC regular season play as it is. So,
Right. Yeah, that's a tough one too,
but
Joe.
NC State beat us at home.
They did beat us at home. They got some big wins, but big wins didn't do squat for us last year,
right?
Because of our non-conference strength of schedule losses.
Right. And again, like I said, out of those four teams, you're looking at those four teams. In my opinion, Syracuse, other than the big quadrant 1 wins, has a better resume. So it's pretty obvious that when you look at Lenardi, he really, really puts a huge amount into those one or two or three more big wins that they have over us.
And
So,
I say NC State out, and here's why. They got the big wins, but that's all they got. And just going by off of last year, what happened to us, they do have
some bad losses.
Right. And I just think that our resume is better than, like you just said, anybody in the ACC that's on this list right here. I think our numbers our boiled down numbers are better, but I like NC State. I think they're dangerous, but I would have to put them out. Just going through and looking at this.
Well, this is what it tells me, right? So when I look at this, I see teams where, other than Louisville, who's got a pretty good overall strength of schedule, and their non-conference is a little bit better. We have the best strength of schedule, both conference and non-conference, than any of these other four ACC teams. We beat two of them. We lost two of them. The only difference that I see in the rankings that Lenardi has is basically their Q1 wins and losses. Yeah. Now, my thing is that if you're going to have two or three more quadrant 1 wins or losses than Syracuse, and then you're going to have that type of non-conference strength of schedule, then you need to have more than one or two wins over more than us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're 20-13. NC State's got 21 wins. Florida State's got 20. Louisville 20. Virginia Tech 21. So I look at it like,
absolutely, we got 20.
Right. So that just tells me that these teams lost a bunch of games that they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, you have a minute. I have NC State out. What about you?
I have NC State in.
Do you? Okay. All right. Next up is Arizona, 20-11.
Arizona State.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Arizona State. They were once actually ranked top 5 in the beginning of the season. 65 RPI, 114 non-conference strength schedule with a 70 strength schedule. And their Q1 win-loss is 3-5. It's a better percentage, but still the same amount with us. Played in a relatively somewhat down Pac-12 conference this year, and they lost last night, I believe, in their conference game. And right now, Lenardi's got them as first 4 out. But again, just looking at that similar records, we have better numbers, and yet Lenardi still has them as 3 or 4 spots ahead of us. Again, I just threw that one out there because they had lost and they were somewhat near or around us. So I don't think that team's going to end up making it.
I got them out.
What's that?
I got them out. You got them out?
Yeah, I got them out.
All right. The last one on this list is Oklahoma State, 19-14.
Yes. And again, this is again looking at it. Lenardi's got them right around where Arizona State is, 19-14. They got an RPI 85, non-conference strength of schedule of 287, and the strength of schedule is 56. It's probably going to go up a little bit because they did lose to Kansas today. They had a big win against Oklahoma last night, which again, Oklahoma had to.
Which would mean the number goes down, though, is what you're saying.
Well, right. But Oklahoma, they had a good chance to get a win last night and probably lock themselves into the tournament. But Oklahoma State defeated them, give them another chance, and they actually beat Kansas twice this year. Oklahoma State did. So today, Kansas has exacted that revenge. But again, that just tells me a lot. I mean, we were consistently inconsistent in the fact that we knew what we could get. Or like we knew that we needed Marek and Pascal and some players to step up, but we knew kind of around about what we needed to do and what kind of team we were. But this team, it just seems like, I mean, you play Kansas 3 times and you play in the Big 12 where they have a bunch of ranked teams and stuff, and your strength of schedule is only in the 50s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they're 5-10 in quadrant 1, and that's really why they're a bubble team and why Joe Lunardi's got them up there. They beat West Virginia, they beat Kansas twice, so they have some great wins. But you have to have, again, this is just another situation where I look at, you have a non-conference strength of schedule of 287, strength of schedule in the mid to low 50s, and you got 5 quadrant 1 wins, and you only have 19 wins in the season. So unless they have a good reason, if they had maybe a key injury or like a Bonzi Colson with Notre Dame or something, then I just don't understand. Like, they need to have an explanation. Otherwise, that's one of the most inconsistent teams, and I don't see how you could put them in the NCAA tournament, regardless of their the quadrant 1 wins and losses.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I'd have to.
Now, if you beat Kansas today and you beat Kansas 3 times,
absolutely, yeah,
then I'd understand. But
yeah, those rival games in conference games are always hard fought. I mean, look at Pittsburgh put up some fights. They went, they were terrible. So
yeah, Pittsburgh's coach got fired today, by the way.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go 0-19.
He pulled a Homer Simpson dope.
He is so goofy. I feel so bad for that dude.
Yeah, well.
You got Oklahoma State in or out?
I got him out.
Okay, you got him out. I got him out. I got Oklahoma in, Vatech in, Florida State in. Those are the 3 I got. What'd you have?
Well, I mean, based upon
and Syracuse. By the way, I have Syracuse in right now. If this is what we're up against, I have Syracuse in.
Again, like I said,
I know.
These are just the bubble teams and some of the teams that are in that have already lost. So there's still
these are
a handful of bubble teams that are still alive and playing, which we haven't talked about yet. But based upon like just this handful, I mean, I brought this in as far as, there's some teams here that Joe Lunardi has as locks. Virginia Tech, lock, it says on ESPN. So and when you look at that numbers, it's tough for me. So again,
yeah,
maybe it just depends on what quadrant 1 win it is. But again,
wasn't it
how are you going to define that though?
Wasn't it a win at Duke though? At Duke, at Cameron Indoor.
Right, which you have to look at some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
But you can define some wins when it comes to stuff like that, because you can't just say, "Oh, it's a quadrant 1 win." I mean, what
absolutely,
are we realistically going to compare? Them beating Duke at Cameron Indoor, and if Buffalo ends up getting into a quadrant 1 win, or if they end up winning their tournament and getting the 27 RPI, that's going to be a quadrant 1 win. Can you really say that that's the same? Us beating Buffalo at home and Virginia Tech beating Duke at Duke,
absolutely.
And that's the one thing where I feel like this quadrant thing, is going to be. It can't be the end all. All it can really do is just help you see how these teams got their wins.
Which Joe, exactly. And this, back to this point, I'll say this again. That's why these numbers are the boiled down records of your quadrants, your conference, and your non-conference. The numbers, the RPI, the non-conference strength of schedule, and the overall strength of schedule are boiled down of everything you've done.
Yeah.
Which is why it's a good indicator to me, in my opinion, the way they've set this up, that when you look at those 3 numbers, those are the 3 important numbers that you should be looking at. Yes, Vatech at Cameron Indoor pulling off an upset there, that's huge. That's huge. And like you said, beating Buffalo at home, same type of win within the quadrants, obviously, not even close. Not even close.
So they're going to have to obviously categorize where you won the games and how much better they are. Obviously, they're not comparable, but it does show you and charts you kind of where you got the wins. But again, with me, I'm just going by kind of simple common sense that when I see when I see these strength of schedule numbers, and I see some of these RPI numbers, which we're right there in the middle of them. Granted, take away the quadrant one and take away St. Mary's because they're not in a power conference, but all these other teams, you look at these strength of schedule numbers. I'm expecting them to have more wins than me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the end of the
27. Come on, man.
I mean, we're 20-13 now. If he wants the NC States and the Florida States and some of these teams to be in over us, then these teams should be having 22, 23 wins based upon these strength of schedule.
Yeah, and just to compare, we were the first team out last year, and I said it once, I'll say it again. We're looking at an RPI of 85 last year to 44 right now this year. That might change a little bit, but we'll see. Well, probably won't change much. And the strength of schedule overall last year of 57 and of 13 right now. So, and let's see, where were we at last year with our non-conference strength of schedule? Last year was 215, and it's currently at 18. So according to CBS,
and again, we went 8-5 too.
Yeah, that's true.
So again, I just don't see. Well,
let me ask you this, Joe. Let's give us the scenario with what you see. What's the best case scenario for us, or in the worst case scenario for us, with the rest of these games heading into Selection Sunday? Who should we root for?
Who should we root for? Okay, well, we definitely have to root for all of our MAC teams that we played against. So right now, the old SU coach Rob Murphy and good old Eastern Michigan playing that 2-3 zone.
That's right.
Hope they win. Hope Buffalo wins so they can get up past the 30s. And I would love to see Buffalo and Toledo make it to the championship game. And I think winning those two games, getting to that point, would probably push Toledo over to a Quadrant 2 win and a Buffalo to a Quadrant 1 help us out a little bit. And again, we want to cheer for Nevada earlier. They had a little bit of a scare in the Mountain Western Conference tournament. We need them to win out because right now Nevada is in the tournament. And if they lose, there's going to be a bubble stolen. So that's some stuff that we don't really need. We've been fortunate so far. Again, Middle Tennessee State, another one out of the Sun Belt that right now they currently have those two teams in. With Atlantic 10, we would for us we would like Rhode Island or St. Bonaventure to do what they have to do and take care of business. And obviously Gonzaga winning the West Coast Conference was actually a blessing in disguise because everyone was talking about St. Mary's were going to get in regardless. Then they lost that BYU game in the semifinals of the tournament, and now they're talking they could be a bubble or get past. So that's some of the teams that we want as far as conferences, smaller conferences, to make sure that they hold strong and stay ahead of that conference and win it so that no bubbles get taken from us. But some of the other bubble teams tonight, UCLA is playing against Stanford. That's a game. UCLA is on the bubble right now in most playing games, and that's a team we need to root for to lose. UCLA, along with the other Pac-12 game of USC. They're playing against Oregon State. Oregon State did us a favor and beat Washington last night. Let's see if the Beavers can give us another one and beat the Trojans tonight. I think
the Beavers versus the Trojans.
Beavs versus the Trojans. Yep.
All right, so we want
which scares me because you use Trojans to destroy Beavs. So
touche.
Yeah, we can edit that one out. So anyway, UCLA and USC are two teams in the Pac-12 that I believe if they lose tonight, then that will put them squarely around where we are and put us into consideration to be past them. And again, we could talk look at.
Go ahead.
What's that? Well, I was just going to say those two Pac-12 teams. Those are two teams we need to worry about with USC and UCLA. As far as ACC goes, we got to be Duke fans tonight. They're already talking about Notre Dame possibly them giving them consideration just because of the injuries and the fact that they still stayed in the conversation.
They are good, though. They are good.
They are good, and they would have been in the tournament if they never would have had injuries. But again, we're in a situation where them making it could hurt us.
Hey, Hey, that was a epic disaster last night by Vodtech. That was
No, yeah.
That was terrible.
Yeah, Biotech could have sealed the deal and definitely could have
Yeah, and
got in.
that's why I got him crossed out. They pissed me off. I was actually rooting for him to win that game. I guess I was on the fence, but I guess it didn't matter. Really, I guess it's good that Notre Dame maybe lost because
Well, no, Notre Dame won.
I mean that's what I mean. It might be good that Notre Dame won because
Well, they're talking about Biotech already being in anyway. So with these teams that are playing tonight, UCLA, USC, Notre Dame, Marquette's playing Villanova tonight. We need Marquette to lose. Texas, another bubble team. Baylor and Boise State randomly is another team out in the Mountain West that is actually starting to get consideration, and they're right behind us in Lenardi's little next 4 out stuff. So they're playing against Utah State, so we need them to lose as well. Those are really the 7 teams I'm worried about right now. Those are the teams that are around us, that are a little bit behind us, a little bit ahead of us. If they lose, they could fall. We could gain closer spots. So that's kind of what we need to cheer for. Marquette almost lost last night. Texas almost lost last night. Baylor almost lost last night. So hopefully we can get these teams knocked out of there so they can't do anything else to pass us up any farther than some people think that they do or don't.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to hold our breaths till Sunday, and we'll be back when we figure.
It's definitely a hold your breath situation.
It definitely is. I said if we beat Wake Forest and lose against UNC, I think it's a 50-50. So I'm going to stick with that. I think should they be in? I think they should be in. Are they going to get in? I don't know.
I'm not going to lie. When we talked, I gave it a little bit of more of a percentage to not be in. But as far as right now, and I don't want to jinx myself because of what's been going on, but I mean, you're not going to get every game that you need to happen. But as far as right now goes, really can't complain about what's been going on with these conference tournaments, and not too many things have happened. I mean, there could have been some more losses that could have helped our situation. But the more I look at these numbers day by day, it's very difficult for me to see that just to see Lenardi having us as like a 6 or 7 team out. And then you're looking at some of these teams that are 9 and 10 bids or 10 seeds in his bracketology, and like our numbers are so close. So it's difficult, and I have a feeling that as we start going and as ESPN starts doing the little blind resume things and stuff, and you can actually see the numbers next to each other without the team, so people can't be biased. I think you're going to start seeing that our numbers actually do stack up pretty well. Again, the only thing that's really hurting us is our quadrant 1 record compared to others.
That's it.
In
the conference record, which we're still only 1 game from 500. So.
Right. And I'd be willing to bet that if you were to take Joe Lenardi's, maybe his last 10 teams that he has in and his last 10 teams that he has out, and you just erase the teams, throw a blind resume out there and say, pick 10 teams to make the tournament. I'd be willing to bet that most people, just based upon a blind resume, would probably pick Syracuse's team or numbers.
I guarantee
to be one of those 10 out of those 20 teams. So, and then again, that exercise we just did with those 8 teams, 4 of them in our conference that, people think are ahead of us so much. It just shows you the discrepancy as far as the fact that we shouldn't really be out of the conversation at all, based upon the numbers.
Yeah. So Selection Sunday will happen, and we will coordinate another episode. We'll put together a show for our thoughts, and depending on what happens, and we'll do a pre-game, and then from there we'll just have to go from there. So well, let's put it this way: either way, we're playing the game next week. So exactly. So we'll be back, obviously. Right. Let's keep our fingers crossed, though, and probably Monday. And what? Probably Monday. What? We'll be back. I'd say probably Monday. After the Sunday show, because yeah. Because Tuesday and Wednesday are the playing games, and Thursday and Friday are NIT games. So, and then Saturday Saturday and Sunday, throughout the weekend, they have the NITs and they have the NCAAs and so forth. So either way, whether we make the NIT or we're a playing game or we're in the NCAA tournament,
without the playing games, we're going to have a game. So,
yeah. So we'll be back. We'll try to get back here Monday then, and we'll see what happens. So go to facebook.com/Cuse Nation Podcast. Give us the thumb up there on Facebook, and Twitter @Cuse Nation Show. And also give John Matthews a follow on Twitter @SyracuseFan7. For Joe, I'm Sean. We're out.
You just heard the Cuse Nation Podcast with Sean and Joe.